But let me just thank everyone for joining us today. I know many of you have been on these weekly calls with us, with our faculty. I'm Scott Barrett, Associate Dean for External Affairs in the Maxwell School, and I'm delighted to welcome you today. This is the latest in a series of conversations with Maxwell alumni and friends with our faculty, many of whom are leading experts nationally and internationally on important topics of the day. We are recording this event and we'll post it on the Maxwell YouTube channel so that Maxwell alumni and friends who could not join us this afternoon can watch it as well. Later in the program, as I mentioned, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. During that portion of the program, you can raise your virtual hand using the icon at the bottom of your screen from the participant list and leave your hand raised. We'll call on you in order. Or you can type your question in the chat box and that would be fine. When you are not speaking and just listening and participating, we'd ask that you keep your microphone on mute, and that lessens the noise for others. We are delighted to have Bill Coplin, Professor and Chair of Maxwell's Policy Studies Program, and Laura J. and L. Douglas Meredith, Professor of Teaching Excellence, with us today. Professor Coplin has devoted most of his professional career to changing undergraduate and high school education so that the fundamental skills required for career and citizenship success are central. Based on the highly successful policy studies major he introduced in 1977 at Maxwell and has managed every day and year since then, Professor Coplin has promoted the idea that the key to skill development is experience outside the classroom. In 2003, he published 10 Things Employers Want You to Learn in College, which carries that same message, and a revised edition was published in 2012. More recent books include Public Policy, Skills in Action, A Pragmatic Introduction, which is the textbook for his popular PAF 101 course, and of course, The Happy Professor, How to Teach Undergraduates and Feel Good About It, which I'm sure he'd be delighted for me to tell you is available on Amazon. Bill has published more than 110 books and articles in the fields of international relations, public policy, political risk analysis, education, and citizenship, and has been honored with most of the teaching and advising awards offered by Syracuse University, as many of you know. I'm told that more than 40,000 students from Syracuse University and students from more than 50 high schools in the Northeast United States have taken his course, PAF 101. Introduction to the Analysis of Public Policy, since 1977. In 2019, an outpouring of alumni support established the Bill Coplin Endowed Policy Studies Scholarship at Maxwell. Commitments to the fund in just over 1 year total nearly $1 million, a great and permanent tribute within the school to a faculty member affectionately known as Coplin. Bill, happy to hear from you today. Please take it away.
Okay. How long am I supposed to talk? What's the deal?
Whatever you're comfortable with, but what we've encouraged is, 15 minutes and then open it up for Q&A and exchange with the audience if that works for you.
Okay. So here's my topics. First, I thought you all would like to know what we're doing about dealing with the virus and online versus live 101 and other courses. Second, I thought you might want to be interested in the evolution of policy studies and what's going to happen to it. And thirdly, I'm going to talk about something that's become more of a focus for me, but I'll tell you what that is. So let's talk about the virus. So last semester, I had to put on the last 2 modules online. And so what do you think I did? Anybody know what I did when I wanted to do this? I'll give you the answer. I asked my TAs, what should I do? So my TAs said, well, why don't you just go to a PowerPoint and talk to the PowerPoints? And I said, I could do that. They even trained me to do it. And we fixed it. We fixed some of the lectures to have interactions, and I think it worked out pretty well. Actually, the paper grades were much higher, but we don't know why. It could be that, or it could be the students had nothing else to do but write papers. This semester, I'm revising 101, and I'm also at the same time making an online version. And because the university doesn't want people packed in Maxwell, they can't come to class 3 times a week. So right now we're thinking a third will come a week to 1 class a week. So over a week, students will come to 1 class live, and the rest will be online. And we're going to probably try and stream it, and then do assignments. So that's, I think, obviously I wasn't real happy about this whole thing, but it's made me think more about the course and fix the course more, and do some things that'll be different than I think it'll be in a lot of other classes. My big advantage is I'll have 20 TAs. Each TA will have 5 or 6 people. So they can have their own little Zoom meetings with their groups instead of sitting on the floor in Maxwell in front of George Washington in groups. Now they will be able to Zoom it. And I think that interaction will actually be better. So we're going to have more of those intergroup things that then produce a basis for me to debrief. I think it's going to work out pretty well. The rest of the people in the department are going to, if it's small, they're going to meet in person. If it's not small, they're going to meet online. I think I'll leave it at that. We're getting emails every day from everybody, and they contradict each other, and they're long and like, I don't know. But right now, they're planning to start a week early and all in-person classes before Thanksgiving. And then after Thanksgiving, the students will stay home and take exams, or in my case, write their last paper. I actually think that's a good idea and to be done permanently. It's ridiculous to run home and then come back for 2 weeks. This doesn't make any sense. So I think that well, I vote for that being a permanent decision. We don't know what's going to happen. We're a little worried. I'm worried because a lot of my antics and things I do to the students in the class won't be there anyway. I won't be able to aggravate them as much online. So I am worried about that. So that means they won't love me as much, which is all I really care about, right? Okay. Now the major. So everybody's worried about when I'm going to die, so I won't be here to run the policy studies major. I have no idea. I'm in great health. I last, much to certain people's chagrin, like another 20 years. Every dean I've had has said, I'm not going to worry about transition. I'll be gone before you will. So I think the current dean's not so sure that I'll be gone before he will, which probably keeps him up at night, I'm sure. So what's going to happen? So right now, the policy studies major is an interdisciplinary major, which is actually, it's not an interdisciplinary major. You know, I don't believe in discipline, so why would I want to be interdisciplinary? It makes no sense. Disciplines make no sense anyway. But it is viewed as an interdisciplinary major. I call it a non-disciplinary major. Am I babbling too much, or what? You guys are just sitting there looking. This is very hard for me because I'm not getting, okay, John shook his head. I need that, John, all the time, because you know I can't live without reinforcement. Okay, so we created an advisory committee, and people on Bob Delfuco, who's running the public administration program. It's actually called PAI. It's IR and public administration. He's on the committee, and a couple other PAI people are on the committee, and then a couple other people. And Carol Faulkner, who's the associate dean sort of for undergraduate, she's on that committee. So we started, and basically what would happen is I would say, we want to do this, and they would say yes or no, and mostly yes. So they allowed me to, they let me hire somebody, and we made a great hire. His name is Austin Zwick. He is a PhD in city planning, and we had 42 people apply, and he was only one of the 42 who actually read what I did in 101 and repeated it and said, I want to do that too. He's a big believer in experiential education and a big believer in undergraduate TAs. So he's come on, he's been very successful. He's taken over 315, which is the research course where students do research for a community agency. I'm sure most of you remember that. It's the big, they call it capstone. I don't know what I would call it. Anyway, he's running that, but now he has 45 students this semester. So we have 90 projects done every year. And we have like 30 or 40 regular clients. And it's been hard to get that 45 up. And for him to do 45 is very, very difficult. So of course he uses undergraduate TAs a lot, which takes the load off. And the students complain about his course as much as they used to complain about mine. His ratings are the same as mine, like disorganized, I don't know what I'm doing, all that kind of stuff. So I think he's doing a good job. He also teaches a course in smart cities. And he and I are basically in agreement about what we want to keep in the major. And what we want to keep in the major is two things: undergraduate TAs playing lots of roles throughout the major, and as much experiential activities, learning as possible. Now, both of these ideas are pretty much rejected by most of the faculty. Faculty don't like this. They don't believe in experiential education. They believe in talking. They believe their professors profess. Okay. I will not allow to call me anybody a professor. Call me Coplin, or Coach Coplin would even be better. And as far as undergraduate TAs, that drives everybody crazy, because why would you pay $70,000? Why would a parent pay $70,000 if some little freshman's teaching another freshman? Yeah, a few parents might say that, and some did say that too. I have a senior in 101 complains that he's sophomore TA, like, tough, this works. Without this, we would have no major. And I started thinking about this. When we had 60 graduate a year, 40 of the 60s were TAs, generally speaking. That's like 2/3. And a lot of time, I spent a lot of time on the TAs trying to get them to do things right. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly what right is, so I don't even know what they're doing. But I watch them, and it's very successful. Now, when we have this framework here, and then we're going to institutionalize this, so when I'm gone, somebody else can take over and maintain the program. It's sort of mind-boggling. What's going to happen here? I don't know. Basically, we're going to try and get a governance group that's against what we do, even though they say, I think they're against it. But here's what happened. Because the MPA program had too many faculty, given the number of students, there was pressure for them to teach undergraduate. So this actually was a tremendous gift. And we had 4 PA faculty teaching undergraduates. It was initially thought they would be policy studies majors, which they are, but it turns out political science majors want to take this too. And other students want to take it. And now their classes are enrolled, completely filled each semester. And that runs from maybe 15 to 60. That to me has been a tremendous advantage for the policy studies program, because I always thought the topical specialization courses were weak, weren't really policy. I didn't have any policy courses, but now there's actually people who know something about policy teaching undergraduates, which should have happened like 40 years ago, but now has happened, and that's a permanent change. And any of you know the history of Maxwell, the political science department kicked the public administration department out of political science because it wasn't good enough, because it was applied. That was about, I don't know, 35 years ago. So now what's happening is they're coming back. And they're being accepted by everybody else because the students want this. So that's been a huge positive thing for the major as well as for undergraduates. The question then becomes, as policy studies become part of the PAI program or not? So the argument in favor of it is every public administration program in the country has an undergraduate program as far as we know, okay? So of course, monkey see, monkey do, therefore we should do that, right? Because when it comes to actually thinking of something new, it's hard for people to do that. So we've sort of been going down that road, but I don't want to really get myself into too much trouble at this time. But you can imagine there's some concern. The other alternative would be it stays an independent undergraduate program, as it is now with an advisory group. And I think that's worked for 40 years, 50 years, 45 years. So there's a lot to be said for it, especially because the other approach would cause tension within certain faculties. So I don't know where that's going, and it's very exciting to watch this happening. The dean has agreed to let us hire a third person. So it would be me, Austin, and then this person. This person would teach 101. And when we hire that person, they would have to agree to teaching undergraduate experiential education. And when we hired Austin, we had a couple other people that were in sort of an agreement with the experiential. I think undergraduate like freaks everybody. But I think we can find somebody. So 2 years from now, we might have 3 permanent full-time faculty. And then the courses would be the other courses would be out of PAI or out of anywhere else on campus that was relevant. So I don't know what's going to happen. Okay. I don't know, maybe I should stop here and then I should do my other thing about what I'm trying to do, because you probably have a lot of questions maybe. So I'm going to stop and welcome questions.
Okay, Bill. We can open it to questions now. Certainly, as I said, our guests can use the participant icon at the bottom of your screen. That opens up a box that will allow you to raise your hand if you want, and we'll call on you. Or you can type your questions in the chat box. Again, the chat icon is at the bottom of the screen. Bill, I do have a couple of questions that have lined up already, so we're happy to get started.
Okay.
Let me check them out, and maybe you'll bring others into it as you see fit. But Julie Wilkie is asking, can you speak to why a policy studies major can be impactful? I'm here with my 10th grader right now. He can't, he doesn't grasp how policy can make a substantial change. Okay,
so a lot of people, especially young people, want to make the world better. And we give students the tools to do that. There's 10 skill sets that are mentioned in my book, and you can see it on the website. So you can go to the website and read my website. You decide you want to do something. Now, the first thing is make sure what you want to do, you know about and are stakeholder in. So do not have as your policy objective to promote world peace or to reduce racism in the United States or to do some general non-doable thing that's poorly defined. So better you get your school to do a better job on something or your local community. So the first step for a 10th grader would be try to make a change where he is. Once you do that, then you have things you can look at research. Let's say you believe that you're tired all day because you go to class too early and all the students are too tired to really study. So that's a big issue among students and discussed. and there has been changes. So you have to go to your first class is at 7:30, and you think it should be at 9. Then you wouldn't be tired all day. So that would be your policy. So how would you get your school to implement that policy? First, you have to ask who the players are. You have to talk to the players. You have to see their ideas. You have to do research, and you have to be constructive. That's a quick answer. But I guess the number one thing is to worry about improving where you are, not the rest of the world.
Great, Bill. Thanks. Certainly we're open to more questions. You can raise your hand, you can enable your camera if you wish, or you can type in the chat box. I do see a couple of notes here. Aaron McElroy is saying, please keep the experiential aspects of the program. It was the most important aspect of my education and policy studies, Bill. And then Jonathan Cohan has noted that he agrees the blend between didactic and practical application is what distinguishes the program. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, I think if you take a skills oriented, if your goal is skills, then obviously you have to do experience. You only develop skills through practice. If you can't practice in the real world. I also very much against presenting abstract ideas. I call it the Trinity: lectures, readings, tests. That's an evil thing, especially after starting in the 10th grade. And it's what students turn off so much. It's a closed system. So when I get students come to me in 101, they say, well, what's a public policy? Did you read the book? Well, I have to go find one. Well, you didn't tell me what it is. You didn't give me the answer. Why didn't you give me the answer? Because I don't give you the answer. You find the answer. I give you the prompt. And they have a tough time dealing with that because K through 12 tends to be the Trinity: lecture, test, lecture, readings, tests. And it's a closed system. There's no room for creativity. The hardest thing is to get answers and think of things. And the school systems don't really encourage that, except in extracurricular activities like theater and other things where they actually do stuff, or Model UNs where they actually do stuff. So I think experiential is key.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Michael Snyder's asking a great question, I think. He's saying, what is the biggest difference in your students now compared with back in the beginning? P.S. You are better than ever. I thought you'd like that piece of it. You are better than ever.
Thank you, Mike. I think the students are smarter and they have all that technology. I think they're lazier and spoiled and have been told they're brilliant. So they need to be beaten down more than I used to have to. And those that get me like it. I mean, give me more pain. Yes, pain. No gain without pain. So I think a lot of students have trouble adjusting to that. I feel I've had some contraction in 101, just a little bit, like instead of 150, maybe 125. I think it's because the word is out that this course is a lot of work, and it's also very annoying. So, and actually, I mean, the same percents hate me anyway, so I don't think that's changed. But I think this is a lot of work. This shouldn't be a 100 level course. I just think they're spoiled and not being challenged as much as they used to be. But they have technology. They can use Google to find answers. They can problem solve. But and the other problem is, like, they don't know anything. I mean, they don't know anything. I mean, sometimes when I say President Truman, I stop and say, do you know who he was? And of course, they're going to say, yeah, he dropped the A-bomb, so he's a bad dude. So then I have to give them a lecture on that. But generally, they don't have a lot of background. They don't have a lot of background. But on the other hand, I mean, neither do I. So what comes in my mind leaves. So I think they're getting more like me, I guess, which is I'm not going to retain anything. When I need to find the information, I'll find it, which I think is the way to go. as I tell them, knowledge is not valuable. Knowledge is not power. Finding knowledge is power. Finding the finding, not the knowledge itself, because there's just too much of it. And by the way, there is no knowledge anyway. There's only speculation. So I hope, yeah, that's what I think. They're not, you have to worry about if they have any background knowledge whatsoever. I mean, I think that's an age thing, obviously, too, right? I'm old. So I think most of them still know there was a World War II. I'm thinking, maybe.
We've got a few more questions lining up. Also, Katie Lewinsky has her hand up so Katie, if you would like, you can enable your microphone and ask your question.
Hey, Coplin. I promise it.
Hi. There she is.
I think I'm here just to troll you. I'm curious what you've seen change over the 40 years in terms of the types of jobs in either fields that graduates are going into, private versus public, nonprofit, etc. What have you seen lately?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big thing is consulting has grown tremendously. And for students that are good with numbers and problem solving, they tend to want to go there. They come in wanting to be lawyers because monkey see, monkey do. And then I beat on them. And then I say, you'll get 95,000. I just had a student get 95,000 starting at Deloitte right out of college. And she went 3 years, by the way. 95,000 versus you're going to go to law school, lose $250,000 and then write wills. Is that your idea? So I think consulting's become much more important. I still have kids who want to go to law school, and I beat on them. But if they want to go to law school, they should go to law school. Other jobs, the nonprofit sector. I think there are bigger nonprofits that pay an okay living. So kids are getting those kinds of jobs. A lot of them are going to business, and of course they're all going to end up in sales one way or another anyway. I think the big change is the consulting thing. Now the other big change is, which has really struck me, if you don't take courses in information technology, and you're making a big mistake. So you've got to learn how to what's going on with technology, because there's big databases and there's web design, there's all this, and webinars, and now with everything through Zoom, I mean, you've got to be good at it. So I more or less, I really pressure them to take the introductory IST course. And some of them say, I'm never going to do this, but most of them wind up minoring, and a few even majoring, and even leaving arts and science for information technology. If you've got to do it, and that's been a big change. I saw I had a student who's very good, and she got out before the IST thing, like 2014, or and she was in Teach for America, and then she didn't know anything about Salesforce or platforms or anything. She was a teacher, so she was almost like had to retrain herself. And if she had been here 3 years later, that wouldn't have been a problem, and she should have still gone to Teach for America, but she would have also had this technology back. I think that's key. Technology is key. It guarantees you a job. And the IST has done a great job in recruiting, and doing this.
They do a lot of experiential too, Bill, I know. So
yeah.
It lines up well with you. Kathy Dakoff is asking, how can policy training benefit the broader SU student population? Is this possible?
Well, I think policy studies is, first of all, it's not all about public policy. It's about policies. And I like to say, where your family's going to eat Thanksgiving dinner is a policy decision. And you might want to influence that decision. So everything you do in your life has to do with either living under policies or making policies. It's the same process at every level. You've got to look at what will work, and you got to look at what will be implemented or feasible. So I think I'm training them to really be good citizens, to be functional in their own life, but also to be good citizens. And also to deal with this, what I think is a really bad thing that's happening with this ideological knee-jerk crap on both sides, where you can't talk to anybody because they don't want to hear it. My class, they're always trying to figure out, am I a left winger or a right winger? And the answer is, yeah, I'm both. I don't know what I am. I'm in the middle. I don't know. It depends what the situation. Now, do they have to be like me? No, but they have to be open. And see, I think when you teach content, you're closing their mind. It's the Trinity again. You're closing. You read this stuff, take a test, write a paper. No, problem solve. Try to solve a problem. And then once you solve a problem that involves both politics and efficiency, you're ready to go at any level. And I think you'll be a better voter and a better citizen. I don't know if that answered your question.
Sure. No, I think that's good, Bill. You are being called out a little bit by a former colleague of yours. I see a note here from Bob, might be former senior associate dean Bob McClure, I think, is in the house, and he says, "Come on now, Bill, you don't mean there is no knowledge," which is something you just said. I think you often speak very hyperbolic, Bill. Thoughts on, do you want to respond to Professor McClure?
No, I disagree with you, Bob. I mean, in the physical sciences, maybe we have knowledge. Social science, it's all speculation. Everything is speculation. Now, is there good speculation and bad speculation? Yeah. Good speculation, you get your facts, you show your statistics, you make a rational argument. That's good speculation. Is it true? No, we don't know. I don't know. I'm sort of an atheist about knowledge. Don't believe in it. And I think, I think the idea that universities transmit knowledge is one of the biggest lies today, maybe forever.
Maybe this is a future session we could hold in which we have a panel discussion, but I think Bob unmuted his microphone, so he may want to join in the conversation. Bob, did you have something?
Oh, Bill,
Hi, Bob.
we've had this discussion we came on the faculty at the same time. So we've known one another for a long time. He had the unfortunate situation for a while where he sort of had to report to me. And so these battles went on a regular basis. But Bill, you don't want to destroy as much as you do. To tell people that there is no knowledge in the social sciences, that it's all speculation, is a hyperbole that doesn't do you justice. Even if it's true, you can't experientially learn everything that other people have learned. And so you don't want to lead people down that destructive road. Experience is good, and we need it, but it's not everything.
No, I don't know. I can't. I mean, to me, an idea has some validity if it works. And the only way it's going to work is through experience.
So some great Maxwell debate, no doubt. Bill, we're seeing several questions here, and I'll try to put them together as makes sense. But John is asking, how does the major prepare students for a world on fire with pandemics and justified social unrest? And then there are other questions sort of around that, talking about what policies do you see fundamentally changing as a result of the pandemic and things of that nature. So can you talk about the environment we're in today and what you see both for policy studies majors and what you see maybe changing into the future?
Well, I mean, I believe in a problem-solving model. I believe in solving problems. And of course, you never solve problems, you only ameliorate them. And I think I'm a pragmatist. And I think pragmatism is the only way to go. I know there are arguments against pragmatism in that, it doesn't look at basic goals and things. I don't know, sort of deep. But I think my students will be better prepared because they're gonna think in terms of, well, what's the problem? Wait a minute, have we really identified the problem? Because when I watch meetings and decision making done, they always come up with solutions before they come up with the problem. They have the problem clearly identified. And if you don't have the problem clearly identified, then how can you tell if your policy ameliorates the problem? And so I think it's training people to be very specific about getting evidence to evaluate whether or not what they're thinking of works. And you have to go one step at a time. I mean, if you look at the virus and the treatment of it today, there's been a lot of stuff said, and it's all speculation. It's all speculation, but it's based on science and research. But we don't know if it's going to work, and whether given actions work or not is my criteria for, if we wanted to use Bob's term, truth. It's very, when you're generalizing at a high level, it's speculative, and there are always exceptions. And William Blake said to generalize is to be an idiot, which is true, but that's also a generalization. So I think it does prepare, it makes people pragmatists to roll with the punches, to see what's going to work and not going to work. If you look at the attempts to deal with the virus, we don't really know whether it's working or not. You can just watch whether the diseases go down or up. And of course, the world is multi-causal, which means it could go down or up for various reasons, and we can't pinpoint the reason. So then we've got the university making these policy decisions based on speculation. The question is, does it work or not? I don't know if that answers it.
Bill, Ryan is asking, with the protests happening right now, where are you getting your news from? And when will you sign his copy of The Happy Professor?
Well, he's got to send it to me. Where is it? Did he buy it?
It sounds like he has it, so he must have.
Well, I'll sign it. You can mail it to me. I'll sign it and mail it back. I'll pay for the postage back. Information, I look at both sides. I basically think that I can't trust any of it, and I just sort of don't want to listen to it. I think there's, the video drove it. That was a case, an experiential case. We know that happened. It then led to speculation and BS on both sides. That continues. So I don't know what to say about it. I just want to solve problems that I can control in some way. Whether the leaders fix it, I don't know. World is multi-causal and also non-linear, which means that things happen, and what politicians can do is they can cause a lot of trouble. They cannot, or not very successful in dealing with complicated problems. I mean, they've made a mess of education in this country. Politicians have to have answers, or they won't get reelected. And they don't have any answers. And the only answers we can trust is if a policy came up and it appeared to work. But of course, it's not going to work 100% of the time. So what percent of the time is it going to work? So unfortunately, the world is not knowable. You have to have faith. A politician makes a decision. A leader makes a decision. It's based on faith, and then whether it works or it doesn't. And the consequences are tremendous. You know, there's tremendous variety in consequences. So that's why I take my position that everything is speculation. Everything. There's only.
We'll get to the sciences in a minute. There's a question there, but let me a couple of others before we get to that. Zachary's asking, are you planning on adding any more experiential classes, something like PST 410 or something like PST 410 consulting or PST 416?
We're running out of clients, so we're doing as much as we can with clients. And that's a very specialized question that and Zach's just graduated and he knows stuff and the rest of the group doesn't know stuff. So okay. I don't think I want to say any more other than wherever we can, we use experience. Sometimes the experience can be in the class itself. Like the question of equality. What does equality versus order versus freedom mean? Well, I run an activity in the class where the kids choose a grading system. And then the debate over the grading system highlights the conflict between should you get the grade you earn or should you get a bump, a freebie, a subsidy. And there's people who want the subsidy, or those not theoretically those not getting the good grade, or those who have such guilt because they're A students and they want C students to get a B. Okay. So that all the issues that surround these questions of subsidies are raised in this classroom exercise. And so to answer Zachary, we could do stuff in class too that's
experience. Okay. Couple of more I've got here, Bill. What skills, Frank is asking, what skills do you think are most important for students who are graduating today? What are the most important skills?
People skills and teamwork skills. Assuming they can do Excel and have familiarity with big data and with technology. But it's always people skills and teamwork skills that determine success. Always. It's always been that way. It always will be that way. John D. Rockefeller said he would pay any amount of money for somebody who's good with people. He doesn't care what their specialization and expertise. So we're trying, the major, first of all, the major gives students a lot of criticism, and employees and supervisors like workers to take criticism. And that's one thing school systems don't train. They tend to give them praise, never criticism. So they come to college and they run into some criticism and they wilt. So I would say interpersonal skills and sort of the ability of the student to motivate themselves and to be responsible. They're all important. And of course, Excel is life. You don't know Excel, forget it, okay? And then I think a little bit more technological awareness. But some people still are still wrong.
Aaron had noted in the chat box before you said it, Bill, that Excel is indeed life. So Jackson is asking, hello, Professor Coplin. I've always thought that promoting policy education in the sciences, especially to scientists, could better empower the future of our world as far as scientific innovation and technology is concerned. Do you think this is true? And how critical is it? Should scientists have some policy background to better improve our world?
Well, the problem with many scientists is they really think they're smart and good, and they're arrogant and closed-minded. So those scientists need to take 101. Okay, but there are scientists that are more open and understand the complexities. They have to understand, like, there's no solution. There's no like final answer. There's only tentative answers, which makes the pragmatism not really sit well with science. It sits at the experimental level, but once they think they have something, then they'll push it. So we have a lot of evidence of scientists going off the deep end one way or another. So I don't know. I think scientists should be relaxed a little bit. They've had a tremendous impact on the social sciences, where all the social sciences are trying to imitate the sciences. And that has been a disaster. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, there are definitely some tough ones here, Bill. Here's a question from Dalton saying, I'm thinking about the oath in the foyer of Maxwell Hall. In trying to achieve a greater city by obeying the city laws, how do we navigate policy in the racial climate today relative to the city laws?
So I think that's a big problem. The Athenian Oath appeals to a lot of people because it's, you know, make the city better, which means change it. But there's this thing about obeying the laws. I think we've got a huge problem with this. I think it started when Lyndon Johnson didn't back down on Vietnam, and the kids revolted, and the students, the generation of that group thought they ended the Vietnam War when they didn't end the Vietnam War. They didn't end the Vietnam War. Johnson finally realized what it was a mess. He could have realized 3 years earlier, but the damage was already done because authority was threatened and illegal behavior was allowed. And I think we've been going downhill from then. When I saw that in the mid 70s, early 70s, I was like, this is not good. Just one thing, like you can't run a draft in this country because of that. Now, do we need a draft? Well, we figured out a way not to have a draft. Okay? We pay people. But the idea that you could make people sacrifice their lives for this country went down the tubes then. And so authority dissipated, and it's been dissipating ever since. And I'm very concerned. And then the politicians on both sides are lawless, trying to break. And then of course we have the lawyers running around trying to break every possible law or stymie it or reduce it. It's a mess. As far as the current, I think one thing that's good about what's happening is in people's minds, there are protesters who obey the law, and those are good people, although you might not support what they're protesting. And then there are the looters. And I think those two don't get mixed up as much as they used to, I think, because of it's become so apparent. But other than that, I'm not happy. I think I'm very worried about the unwillingness to obey rules.
Bill, I think we have time for maybe a couple of more. I see Elizabeth Sador has her hand up, so I would ask Elizabeth to unmute her microphone and she can ask her question.
Hey, Coplin.
Hi.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, you mentioned how education is a mess, and just in general, can you talk a little bit about what you think needs to change to improve the educational systems?
Thank you. And that was going to be my focus. My focus is how the elitism that dominates the education system is extremely destructive, especially towards poor people. And it starts in kindergarten and it runs up through college, where the kids have to learn stuff instead of skills, and where the kids have to are prevented from learning about careers. I'm a big fan of sort of, I don't want to call it vocational, but 2 tracks: career development, career experience, and a skill development. But in the way is all this content, which is purported to be knowledge, which is not knowledge, but speculation and what I call cultural artifacts. So Shakespeare's a cultural artifact. Okay. Should he be taught? I don't know. I was talking to a real bright student. She said, I wish they had translated it into English. I might have been able to understand it. So I'm sort of a peasant when it comes to education, and I think sending everybody to college to learn this speculation and abstraction that college professors do is very destructive. And there's studies starting to come out showing that social mobility is reduced because of college. And college is one of the factors. Nothing causes anything. So I, at the university, see decisions made every day to reward the smartest, which means those that do academic stuff the best, who are scholars. Scholarship itself is a very specialized activity that has limited utility. Problem solving has utility. Writing clearly has utility. And Benjamin Franklin was whining about this when he tried to set a University of Pennsylvania. Everything was taught in Latin. He was trying to stop it. And he thought gardening should be a requirement in the liberal arts core. I do too. And gardening instead of biology. How about that? Or earth science or whatever. Start with the problem. Make it real to the student. Make it accessible to the student. I think 80% of what's taught in college is inaccessible to 75% of the students. And then when you talk to the students who come out of a poor area, who haven't been developed, it's much worse. But even the fairly moderately good student really doesn't want to learn this stuff and may even not be capable of learning this stuff. And the stuff has no utility to them as a person. And then there's this other, there's this, I want my doctor to go through organic chem, I guess. I'm not sure that, but because he has to have a brain. No one near me doesn't have a brain. But not everybody's a doctor, right? Not everybody has to take organic chem. Yet the system is set up to make students jump through these hoops, starting in kindergarten and running through college, that are irrelevant. I think everything should be skill training. Okay.
Bill, to be respectful of time, I think you said you had one final piece you wanted to share at the end. Is there something, or was that?
I mean, that was it. That's
what I thought.
And that's what I'm doing. I've always been doing this, but I've never realized it as much, is I want more accessibility. I did write an article that said, educating 100% of the students 100% of the time. A long time ago I wrote it. But finally I'm starting to realize, I guess that's really what's bugging me and pissing me off about what's going on in college and in the education system. And it's got to change. And I don't think it will change, because I think the elite doesn't want it to change, because that's what they did, and they feel they're very smart and wonderful people. Well, if they were so wonderful, why don't they fix this? And it's not, I think the African-American population is particularly harmed by this. I think poor people in general are harmed by it. And this non-starting in the school system, and then either graduating high school or dropping out, is creating huge numbers of people that could actually be much better off. So that's bugging me. That's my focus. That's what I'm doing.
Bill, thank you so much for doing this today. We do appreciate it. We knew we'd get a great turnout, and we did. So thank you. And I'd also like to thank the team that put this together, the Maxwell's outstanding information and computing technology team, for supporting the talk, and to the Maxwell Dean's Office, Jessica Murray, Maxwell's Director of Alumni Engagement, for setting up today's event. A reminder to all of you that if you're interested, tomorrow at the same time, 3 p.m., we'll be joined by Professor Emeritus Bob McClure, who was on today, who will present The Constitution and the Pandemic, the President and the People. That should be very interesting. And next week, on Wednesday, June 10th at 2 p.m., we'll host Professor Osama Khalil, who will speak about U.S. foreign policy and COVID-19. We hope that you might join us for those sessions. If you have further questions or ideas for future topics, let Jessica Murray or myself know, please. We're going to continue these for as long as there is alumni interest and we continue to see great crowds like we did today. I thank you all for joining us and for all that you do for the university and for all that you do for the Maxwell School. So thank you very much and be well.